Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you The Merchant of Venice. William Shakespeare was born on approximately April the 23rd of 1564 in Stratford-upon-Avon to John and Mary Shakespeare. At the age of 7, he begins his formal schooling at the King's New School, which stressed a classical education of literature and Greek and Roman culture. After graduating, he was not able to attend a university due to his father's crippling debt. Rather, he married Anne Hathaway in 1582 at the age of 18, Anne being 26 at this time. Their first child, Susanna, was born a year later, and Hamnet and Judith were both born in 1585. From here, Shakespeare's history is lost in the mists of time, being referred to by historians as his lost years. It is highly believed that he joined an acting troupe and moved to London during this time. Along with moving to London, it is also believed that he wrote in the first act of Henry VI between 1589 and 1590, with the following two parts between 1590 and 1591. In 1592, he officially reappears when a critic named Robert Greene notes him as an upstart crow lacking originality. Unfortunately for William, the Black Death hits around this time and closes all the theaters in London. He turns to poetry and play production during this time, churning 154 sonnets out and producing The Taming of the Shrew, The Two Gentlemen of Verona, and Love's Labour's Lost by the end of 1594. That same year, he joins the acting troupe The Lord Chamberlain's Men. His writing became prolific in 1595 to 1597, penning Romeo and Juliet, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Richard II, The Merry Wives of Windsor, Henry IV, Part 1, and The Merchant of Venice. The Merchant of Venice is a notorious play not due to Shakespeare's production of it, but mostly because of its controversial nature in modern theatrics. The play was penned during a time of heavy anti-Semitism in England, following the perceptions and stereotypes given to Jews as being sinful usurers. The theme of patriarchy is strong in the play, ironic given this was penned when Queen Elizabeth I reigned. Puritanism was also strong during this period, lending many to think Shylock the Jew in the play is some Puritan form of Judaism. A great influence to this play's production was The Jew of Malta, a play written by Christopher Marlowe around 1578, depicting Barabbas the Jew as an unrepentantly evil person, so much so he was boiled for it. Funnily enough, The Jew of Malta was supposed to be a satire on how Christians were projecting themselves onto the Jews, but nobody seemed to see it. Either way, The Merchant of Venice is famous on account of its controversy and discussion of its themes. This short section to be performed is Shylock's famous Hath the Jew not eyes speech in Act 3, Scene 1. The sole character for this soliloquy is Shylock the Jew, and by this point the story goes as thus. Antonio, the titular merchant of Venice, is unusually depressed. Bassanio, a friend of Antonio's, asks a favor of Antonio to lend him some money so he can court Portia of Belmont. As he set out a convoy of ships on a trading mission, Antonio is short of money, but agrees to have Bassanio arrange a loan with Shylock the Jew. Meanwhile in Belmont, Portia laments over her father's will, which dictates that she must wed a suitor who correctly chooses from 3 boxes, one of gold, one of silver, and one of lead. She does express hope for Bassanio, who has visited her once before. Back in Venice, Shylock agrees to loan the money, but a stipulation is made. If Antonio cannot repay at due time, he must cut off a pound of flesh as a compensation. Antonio agrees to this, thinking that the ships would return before then. Meanwhile, Shylock's servant Launcelot leaves for Bassanio, and Jessica, Shylock's daughter, schemes with her lover Lorenzo to leave Shylock with some of his money. That night, both run from Venice while Bassanio leaves for Belmont to win Portia's hand in marriage. News arrives from the north saying that some trade ships have foundered in the English Channel, giving rise to a rumor that those were Antonio's ships. That rumor excites Shylock, leading to the speech on why he chose to stipulate the details of the loan in such a way.
Debate fish withal. If nothing else, it'll feed my own revenge. He hath disgraced me, hindered me 500,000, mocked at my gains, scorned my nation, thwarted my bargains, cooled my friends, and heated mine enemies. And what's his reason? I am a Jew. Hath not the Jew eyes? Hath not the Jew hands, organs, dimensions, senses, affections, passions? Fed with the same food, hurt with the same weapons, subject to the same diseases, healed by the same means, warmed and cooled by the same winter and summer as a Christian is? If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong a Christian, shall we not revenge? If we are like you in the rest, we will resemble you in that. If a Jew wrong a Christian, what is his humility? Revenge. If a Christian wrong a Jew, what should his sufferance be by a Christian's example? Why revenge? The villainy you teach me, I will execute, and it shall go hard, but I will better the instruction.
The scene above influences the depiction of Shylock for the rest of the play as a human being prone to the same acts of evil as everyone else. This speech is also a subject of great debate for the play in general, as some academics argue that this speech highlights Shakespeare's depiction and treatment of Jews, besides the mainstream stereotypes of the era. The plot following this scene, Shylock takes Antonio to court, presided by the Duke of Venice. Bassanio begs Shylock to take double the money to avoid taking Antonio's flesh, but Shylock is dead set on taking Antonio's flesh as revenge for all he has done to him. Here, Portia and her aide Nerissa disguise themselves as men to attend the proceedings, with Portia acting as the defending lawyer. Portia first entreats Shylock to be merciful, but he ignores her. She then tries to offer triple the original loan as payment, but Shylock is still intent on his agreed-to payment. She gives up and resigns, noting that Shylock is fully within his rights for this case. However, Portia tricks Shylock by saying that he must cut an exact pound of flesh from Antonio without spilling a drop of blood, otherwise all his land and goods will be confiscated. Shylock, realizing his mistake, attempts to accept first the tripled payment, then the original payment of 3,000 ducats. Portia denies both of them, saying that he was the one demanding a strict interpretation of the law. Venetian law also holds him on another account, that being he is a foreigner, and he attempted to take the life of a native Venetian, subjecting his wealth to division between the victim and the state, along with a possible death sentence. Fortunately for Shylock, the Duke spares his life, but on the stipulation that he must give half of his fortune to Antonio and the other half to the state. Antonio adds on to that stipulation that he must convert to Christianity and leave the rest of his money to Jessica in his will. Shylock gives in and leaves the court, including the rest of the play. Portia and Nerissa, as payment, take the rings they gave to their betrothed, rings that they made them swear to always wear. Back at Belmont, Portia gives Antonio grief over the missing ring, saying he gave it to another. A series of long, agonizing moments of embarrassment happens before Portia reveals to Bassanio of her escapades in Venice. The play ends when Antonio, who is accompanying Bassanio to Belmont, receives a letter from Portia stating that 3 of his ships arrived safely in port. In comparison to the other plays Shakespeare created, this one holds a more controversial position than the others, helping preserve its name compared to some of his lesser-known works. The quality remains consistent to Shakespeare's standard, as each character is complex, three-dimensional, flawed, and above all, human. The setting is exotic from Shakespeare's usual writing, taking place in South Central Europe, and is one of the shortest plays I have had the pleasure to read. The play itself was a pleasure to experience, as it was a departure from Shakespeare's usual historic or fantastical fare, and tackles important themes that were present in his life with the same finesse and dexterity of his other, more prominent works.